Hi, I'm Rachel, and welcome to my Spring 2023 Quarterly Writing Goals Update video, where I set goals for the next 3 months of my writing, but first look back on the last 3 months of my writing and see how I did, and whether or not a certain SEPTA has to come visit me. So I've been doing these videos for a few years now. I'll link my AuthorTube playlist down below, and it's just a fun way to keep accountable to a writing schedule, and I do it in various sections. You'll see the markers going down the screen. And without further ado, let's get into it. So I feel like I have lots of great stuff to report this quarter. And the first thing I'm going to start with is something is very vague. I'm really just going to tease it, but I have good news coming down the pike. It's just I'm waiting for something to come from a public channel before I officially announce it, but I'm sitting on something exciting, so watch this space. But yeah, other than that, there's been a lot of other great new developments as well. I joined the Writers' Hour, which is technically part of the London Writers' Salon. It's this online writing accountability group, I think, that started during COVID. And 4 times a day at 8 a.m. at different time zones, people convene online for an hour of sustained writing. And of course, you know, it gives that special fun accountability of doing it together. And they run a really great tight ship where there's 2 hosts every morning. I, of course, partake in the Eastern Coast 8 a.m. time before going to work. And anyway, so we start, and 2 hosts sort of guide us in by reading off comments from the really lengthy chat. There's usually at least about 150 people in the space, so people are calling in or, zooming in from all over the world, and we give like brief little snippets of what we're hoping to write for the next hour, and then, well, technically 50 minutes after all of the, hellos and the goodbyes at the end. But yes, then we sat down to writing for 50 minutes, and then we're called back, 5 minutes to the hour, and 2 people get to even highlight what they worked on and how it went for them, audibly. And then, of course, there's also a bunch of fun stuff still happening in the chat, but it's really been working for me to have sustained progress, especially on my fantasy novel, which is what I am using it for. I'll have to talk more about my fantasy novel goals later on, but this is a great, exciting way for me to like keep the forward momentum going with that. I've really been enjoying it. I'll be leaving links down below. Another great find, although technically I found this group a while back, but I officially utilized it this quarter, is Submit-It, which is a service for literary short story writers looking for appropriate places to submit your work. So I heard about them through Becky Took's literary short story newsletter, which I'll also link down below. And this is a service by Eric Harper Class, who's this fellow short story writer, and he created this fancy schmancy algorithm where he has a couple hundred literary journals, mostly, I believe, US based, in it, and it basically is supposed to be a way to narrow down the ones that are most likely to accept your work after he reads it, and he also has some editing packages. And yeah, he has a 65% success rate for helping people get published, which was really exciting. Especially after, I got several rejections for Lashon Hara, but some of them were positive, and I thought maybe I should at least try this and see if he could narrow down some options where my odds are better. So that's something I started, this quarter. I've gotten as far as he gave me some copy edits, which I graciously took, and now I have my first of two journal lists. He goes in sessions of two. You start with the higher tier journals, either the ones that, you know, accept about 1% of submissions, or for those of us, I think, who are a little more realistic, we go to the 3 to 5% acceptance rate. So that's the journal list I have right now. But you know, the odds are still very low, so that in 4 months, if I have not gotten any acceptances, he will send me the most accessible list, which I think accepts up to like 8 to 10% of submissions, and that's, I think, where most people ultimately find a home for their work. So yeah, this is an exciting new adventure, and I have to, you know, go ahead and get that rolling. And finally, I'll give you a brief update on the DC Writer Salon. It's the local and more in-person group I'm involved in. Have been for the past few years. I mostly attend 2 write-in sessions per week, but there's a lot of other stuff going on as well, particularly this new development, which our founder is calling Affinity Circles, for people who are writing in different genres to come together for workshopping and other events. And in the last quarterly video, I talked about joining the short story affinity circle and meeting a couple times with them, and now I've joined the fantasy and science fiction affinity circle, and we're meeting again in early July to do some workshopping, and I'm debating taking part in that because I am knee-deep into fantasy writing. So yeah, lots of great stuff on the docket. I'm calling this quarter a win. I guess I'm gonna shut down the video now, but I guess technically I can't, given my own parameters of what I cover here, so I'll just have to see what comes next. And actually what I cover next is stepping away from my creative fiction writing pursuits for a little bit to talk about some other writing that I do monthly, because I maintain 3 blogs where I write at least 1 post per month. So in this section I highlight my favorite posts per blog of the quarter. And anyway, I'm going to start with my Jewish DC post. Jewish DC is a blog I maintain about Jewish events happening in the DC area, and this was a really exciting quarter for me because a new museum just opened, the Capitol Jewish Museum, which was sort of built on the bones of the Jewish Historical Society, where I actually interned about 10 years ago when I was in library school. So it was really fun for me to check it out. It just opened to the public earlier, well, I'd say this month, I mean in June. So yeah, I gave a brief review of that. I'm very excited to continue going back there. For my reading and writing blog, I actually just talked about this in my last video, my mid-year check-in freakout tag video. This covers my favorite adaptation that I've watched in the last half year, and I talked about it because my favorite was Fleischman is in Trouble, and I also really liked the review I did of that mini-series, I guess because, you know, I enjoyed it so much, and I wrote a bit about stories being mirrors versus windows, and I wrote about things that I really liked and a little that I didn't like so much from the adaptation, and I just think it went down really well, so now I'm sharing it with you. And finally, in Hava's Footsteps, this is a blog I technically started to sort of talk about things from an interfaith Jewish perspective, because I'm the child of interfaith parents, but I moved on from there, and I largely either talk about broader Jewish issues or pop culture issues, and this post actually is a bit of all 3 because I reviewed the Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret movie adaptation, which in my mind really was a Bildungsroman, and it touched upon being a Jewish interfaith young woman growing up, although technically that book took place in the 70s, and I was growing up in the 80s and 90s. But, you know, it's such a timeless story. I feel like a lot of especially young American girls for decades have related to it, or maybe not so much. I actually kind of went back and forth about my remembrances of the original book, and you know, a little bit I think on the adaptation part of the movie. But ultimately I thought it was a really heartwarming kind of film, so I definitely enjoyed taking part in it. But okay, now we're getting to the meat and potatoes of this review, because this is where I hold my feet to the fire about the goals I set for myself 3 months ago and see if a certain SEPTA has to visit me. So I'm going to start with goal number 1, which is the perhaps against my better judgment goal, revise flash fiction for short story affinity groups. So yeah, this harkens back to, I was talking about my salon's affinity groups, and I was particularly involved with short stories last quarter. We met twice, and actually we met 3 times, and the second 2 times I workshopped the same flash fiction story. I'm getting ahead of myself. In this quarter, we met for the 3rd time, and that's when I workshopped it again as my way of like doing a final push before sending it out on submission. So I did go ahead and do that, and the flash fiction is now out on submission, so huzzah! And I said it was perhaps against my better judgment because I'm very primarily involved in trying to make major headway on my fantasy novel, and that leads me to goal number 2, which was my fantasy project sprint ahead of the beta reader's goal, which was finish revisions up to chapter 26 and then some more major rehauls, gulp. And it's kind of crazy to look back and think I did technically do that. When I last spoke, chapter 26 was the section of my novel where things were roughly in place. I had a technical rough draft in place, and then going from chapter 27, things devolved more and more into outlining notes and straight up, you know, nothing yet on the page. So I did get up to chapter 26 and then some, which is a relief because I'm staying in my beta reading group, which is a group of science fiction and fantasy novelists. We meet monthly to go over each other's work piecemeal, and I'll have more to say about this in my setting new goals section, but for now at least this part was a win. I'm really excited to look back and see how much I did with the fantasy novel. But now we get to goal number 3, which was to attend my salon's agent and author Q&A. There's been a couple of agent and author, I think mostly author Q&As with the DC Writers Salon the last quarter, where local writers have come in to talk with the group for an hour at time about their process and what happened with their, you know, writing journeys. And I thought would be very helpful for me to, like, you know, hear what they have to say, but did I actually go to one?
Shame. Shame. Shame.
You know who I really think SEPTA Unella has to shame is the upcoming San Diego Comic-Con, because so many studios are sitting out on it. So it's kind of disappointing as I like obsessively track things from the sidelines, hoping that some movies and shows that I'm interested in, including, you know, the Game of Thrones show House of the Dragons, if they're going to have panels there, and House of the Dragons is not, because I don't think it is, because HBO isn't coming. Although Max is, and I don't understand that, you know, particular split either. And I guess technically speaking, really who SEPTA Unella should shame is the studios, because of the writer's strike, which is why I think so many aren't participating. So I don't know, it's going to be a weird San Diego Comic-Con, which I call the Geek Super Bowl this year. I guess we'll have to see how that goes. But yeah, to get back on track here, I wrap up these videos by setting new goals for the new quarter as we move into the second half of the year, and particularly the summer 2023 quarter. So here we go. I'm starting with goal number 1, submit short story to submitted journals list. So yeah, this is what I was talking about earlier about taking part in Submit It, and I am now to the part where I have a list of 15 possible journals to submit to, and I should do that all very quickly so that I can continue on the road of this journey. And I'm kind of excited, but it does also take a little bit of time to actually sit down and craft the right sort of query letter for each journal, or get the manuscript or in the proper order, what they want specifically. But yeah, hoping for good things. Goal number 2 is to draft my fantasy project up through chapter 39. So to continue with my fantasy project news, I am officially in brand new Wild West territory. In fact, I've overhauled my outline, and I think I even have to overhaul the next few chapters again as I've started writing. I'm currently writing chapter 31, and I talked about this too in previous quarters about staying ahead of the beta reading group, and they've caught up to me. Currently speaking, my beta reading group has access to everything from my manuscript up to chapter 30. And I'm writing chapter 31, so this is kind of nuts. And I've kind of trying to set myself this goal of keeping involved and writing 3 chapters a month and polishing them at least enough to send to the beta reading group, which I'm really using more as an alpha reading group. I'm not sure how much this is actually going to happen. I might have to, skip out some months if I don't have material that's quality enough to send them, but I want to keep going with this. I don't want to completely, leave the group or anything. It's really been amazing how helpful they've been. It's weird waters I'm in because I don't have, a polished draft already, but when I started, they were this jump start I needed, and now I feel like I'm invested in this group, so I just want to see how this will go. And finally, goal number 3 is to promote the good news when there's something to promote, and that is that vague teasing announcement I started out with at the beginning of the video. So hopefully next time you see me, I'll be able to talk about it more fully, so stay tuned. And that about covers it for me now. I will leave links to my blog post down below, as well as to Submit It and the Writer's Hour at the London Writers Salon, and also the post I'm using to, obsessively track what's happening at San Diego Comic-Con, which is happening in a few weeks, if that sort of geekery might interest you. So we are now officially into July, and I hope to be back on this channel in the next couple of days to do another quarterly goal I like to do. This is a TBR game I play quarterly, the BookTube Spin. So I'm looking forward to adding my summer book from that to my TBR, so stay tuned. I hope you are all feeling good as you enter the second half of 2023 with whatever artistic or reading goals you have in store for yourself. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. Keep writing, and I'll see you next time.